Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy. Several Avengers Endgame deleted scenes have just been released, so we're going to talk about each of them and how they kind of fill in some of the gaps of the MCU. Some of the best Avengers scenes are when the team are just hanging out and cracking wise with each other.
You bet your ass.
Steve, you said a bad language word.
And that's what's happening in some of my favorite deleted scenes, like when Steve is debriefing Rhodey about the Tesseract.
And what happened to the Tesseract after that?
It's bottom of the ocean.
You can see the Valkyrie aircraft from the first Avenger and the Tesseract here. And then Rhodey calls out a plot hole that's pretty well trod ground on Reddit.
You couldn't have jumped out of the plane before you crashed it?
Rhodey is of course referring to the ending of First Avenger, where to save New York and the rest of the world, Cap has to pilot a bomber into the ice. And to be fair, this ending did kind of rip off Armageddon, which ripped off A Matter of Life and Death. Anyways, Rhodey says,
And you couldn't have jumped out of the plane before you crashed it?
well, you gotta remember, Rhodey, that this was 1945, decades before MCU heroes showed that not only can you safely jump out of a plane, but you can land on your knee and it won't hurt your joints. And remember that this wasn't just a regular airplane. It was a Nazi super science bomber that may have had self-correcting autopilot. So there. But I also like the background detail here of Thor napping on the couch. And we get another hangout planning scene when Rocket is studying the Battle of New York. Now notice that the screens they're watching are a mix of new footage and shots that are straight from the Avengers. New footage, Avengers footage. Now remember that this is the battle of the MCU. The moment that the Avengers and the shared cinematic universe came together. This battle changed blockbuster filmmaking forever, and it was the defining moment in the Avengers' lives, but Rocket's not impressed.
How long did you fight these guys?
About, two or 3 hours.
Hours? The Chitauri, the suckiest army in the galaxy. Why didn't you just blow up the mothership?
He basically says that the Avengers are stupid for not knowing about the Chitauri off switch. Now, the Chitauri shutdown is easily the dumbest moment of the Avengers. I mean, it's basically a rehash of the ending of The Phantom Menace.
We didn't know that was a thing.
You didn't know that was a thing! Everyone knows! Hey!
And I like that Tony is the one who shuts Rocket up, because this battle gave him PTSD that spiraled for years, leading to the creation of Ultron, the Sokovia Accords, the Civil War, and ultimately their defeat at the hand of Thanos. So it makes sense that he would take this insult personally. And a little detail here, Thor is making Bloody Marys for Ant-Man. Now let's talk about a deleted scene we've known about for a while, the Hulk rescue scene that was re-released in theaters. So, a building is on fire. Screaming civilians are on the top floor. The fire department, led by former police officer Carl Winslow, can't make it in time. Steve! We've seen this moment in superhero movies before, but this time it's the Hulk who comes to the rescue. He's carrying the civilians in a broadcast dish for WKQJ Channel 9, a fictional local news station in Atlanta. Including Atlanta is a nice nod to the city where almost every MCU film has been shot. It also shows us that apparently Bruce Banner has settled in the Peach State.
I know, it's crazy.
And notice too that his shirt kind of has an H on it, which is a lot more subtle version than Superman's S.
It's not an S.
Now this scene would have been used to introduce the Hulk instead of the diner scene that we ultimately got. Personally, I think this could have worked well. We don't get to see the Hulk do anything remotely Hulk-like in Endgame, apart from background work in the last battle and banging on a car. I don't know though, what do you think? Should they have kept this Hulk scene in the movie?
I think it's gratuitous, but whatever.
Next, let's look at another nerfed hero, Thor.
Fine, why? Don't it look all right?
You look like melted ice cream.
In this deleted scene, we see Thor and Rocket when they first arrive at Asgard.
Did you know that I saw all these people die?
There's a lot going on behind this line. Thor is probably wishing he could warn his people about Ragnarok and about Thanos. Until recently, Thor always believed he was the greatest warrior alive.
Thanos is just the latest in a long line of bastards, and he'll be the latest to feel my vengeance. Fate wills it so.
But now he's coping with failure for the first time.
His head was over there. What was the point? I was too late. I was just standing there, an idiot with an axe.
Thor ends this scene by saying,
You don't know? You used to frickin' live here!
For 1,500 years, not forever.
now on the surface, it sounds like Thor's saying that he's been alive longer than 1,500 years, but he hasn't.
You know, I'm 1,500 years old.
This is an example of Thor being a failure and just making excuses for himself. Also, notice the beer can, which he had to smuggle in the pocket of his robe. And this Twix bar and this bottle of airplane vodka, which is empty. And it's a big pet peeve of mine when cups and bottles in movies are so obviously empty. But then again, he was making those Bloody Marys earlier. Next, let's look at deleted scenes that specifically feature Tony Stark. First, there's him and Pepper cooking lunch for Morgan. I like the little scene details here, like the photo collage and the fridge that's jam-packed with wine. Nice example of the MCU ignoring Tony's drinking problem from the comics. Now, amid the banter, they mention,
First of all, Gerald is our alpaca.
It's not my alpaca if he's eating my gojis.
this is a couple in-jokes about the actors' personal lives. Robert Downey Jr. actually does own several alpacas, and Gwyneth Paltrow has released a custom diet plan that involves making juice from goji berries. These are the kind of hilarious, down-to-earth moments that help us little people relate to the mega rich. I mean, who among us hasn't had to laugh off domestic camelids eating obscure Chinese berries from our garden? Next, there's a bit more of the conversation between Tony and Howard Stark that takes place before the bit we saw in the movie.
It's nutty, it's crazy making, because you start worrying about a legacy. You know, you want to leave him a better world, and then you realize you haven't done all that much to give him one.
Now, I like this because it shows Tony relating to his dad's desire to make the world a better place. In the movie, he relates to his father's ego.
Let's just say that the greater good has rarely outweighed my own self-interest.
And his love for his child.
Hey, that kid's not even here yet, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for him.
But this shows that they had something more important in common, wanting to improve the world for the next generation. Next, there's the kneel, which is the tender moment following Tony's death. The order that heroes appear in is important. First, there's Thor and Captain America, the other two marquee Avengers. Hawkeye is the first to kneel, maybe because he's also a father and understands Tony's sacrifice better than anyone else. Then the next generation of Avengers take a knee, followed by Quill and Nebula, all the heroes who served with Tony and didn't get a personal goodbye. And notice that Banner, the old softie, is facing away from Tony. The most important part of this scene is that Gamora survived the snap. Now, it's implied that she survived in the movie, but this confirms it. This also confirms that the Infinity Stones are intelligent, or as the Red Skull says,
you might say it has a certain wisdom.
I mean, think about it. Tony had never met Gamora.
Where is Gamora?
Yeah, I'll do you one better. Who's Gamora?
I'll do you one better. Why is Gamora?
She started off this battle fighting for Thanos, but when Stark wished the bad guys away, the Stones understood that Gamora had switched sides. And this scene is also very similar to the funeral scene that we actually saw in the final film. They use the same score, and each scene slowly pulls back to reveal more heroes honoring Stark. In fact, it's likely that this would have replaced the funeral scene. Personally, I like the funeral better. There's more characters, little Morgan is there, and we get a great callback to the first Iron Man film. Now let's talk about the final deleted scene that the Russo brothers have discussed in various interviews. Originally, after the snap, Tony was going to be transported to Soul World, just like Thanos at the end of Infinity War. And just like Thanos met a child version of his daughter Gamora, Tony was going to meet a grown-up version of his daughter Morgan, and she was played by 13 Reasons Why actress Catherine Langford. She told Tony not to feel guilty about leaving her and that he could go on. But we already have that moment when Pepper tells Tony,
We're gonna be okay. You can rest now.
This reference to sleep calls back to a couple moments earlier in the film.
Lie down for a minute, caress my eyes. When I drift off, it'll be like every night lately. I dream about you.
Would you be able to rest?
As well as Tony's PTSD in Iron Man 3. The Russos cut the scene after it confused test audiences, and rightly so because it doesn't make a lot of sense. Soul World is a kind of pocket dimension inside the Soul Stone. Infinity War implied that Gamora was there because she was sacrificed for the stone. So why would Morgan be there? If anything, it would have made sense for Tony to encounter Natasha, since she was sacrificed for the stone like Gamora. On the other hand, the scene would have made a nice bookend to Infinity War. But I don't know, what do you think? Should this scene have stayed in the movie? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. If it's your first time here, please subscribe. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.